Welcome to another Nerdsday with Susan Layton.
Hi, welcome to Nerdsday. I'm Susan Layton. I'm here filming this bit in 90-degree plus humidity. Meanwhile, my co-hosts Gerry and Keith and our producer Craig are on a yacht somewhere. That doesn't seem fair, does it? Anyway, hey, let's get into it because I have a lot I want to talk about this week. Now, on Tuesday, World UFO Day happened. So that's what I'm going to talk about, UFOs. For anybody that follows me on social media, you know that I'm into the paranormal. I write about it a lot. I've interviewed Chuck Zukowski. I've written about ancient aliens. I just like discussing things that aren't your normal topics. So when World Earth Day came about, I thought, yeah, I got to cover this because it's a day where people that believe that we've been visited before by aliens, and anybody that's an amateur ufologist or even ufologists come together on social media, discuss cases that maybe have never been solved, new cases, discuss Project Blue Book. And in this era right now with Luis Elizondo and Tom DeLonge, and they're trying to get full disclosure on what the military and what our government knows about UFOs, yeah, it's a hot topic. I mean, we can even see that with the people that love Ancient Aliens on the History Channel, or tune in, to UFO Declassified on History. And Project Blue Book was a big hit. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the top 5 sites in America where you can go if you want to see something not of this world. So let's get to cracking. So first of all, up on our list of these states, and I'm using my phone here, so I'm sure to give you the right and accurate counts. First up is Maine. Yes, Maine. Why do you think Stephen King writes about it? Because it's fascinating. You have a few populated areas in Maine, but there are some pretty remote areas where if you want to get away, if you enjoy the outdoors, if you enjoy lollygagging, camping, you might want to go there. I might want to go there. And the vistas are beautiful. They're incredible. You have the ocean. You've got the flora and fauna. It's just tremendous. And if I were an alien, I'd probably go to a remote area too, because you can work unimpeded there. Because everybody says, oh, why don't they come to New York City? Why don't they make a grand pronouncement in Washington, D.C.? Why would you? I mean, maybe they will someday. Maybe it will be like the Earth stood still. But if you just want to observe, if you just want to get the lay of the land, so to speak, understand the biology, understand the flora and fauna, maybe you might want to go to somewhere where you won't be detected. Now, in 1976, in Allagash, Maine, near Eagle Lake, there were 4 guys that were just having fun. They were camping, they were canoeing, they were doing a lot of, great outdoor activities. But what they didn't count on is what happened to them, and is what is now known as the Allagash abductions. So these 4 gentlemen, Jim and Jack Weiner, Charles Foltz, and Charles Rack, they had something happen to them that they couldn't quite explain. And it was affecting their daily lives. They had missing time. They sort of had memories of something that occurred, but they weren't quite sure. So they went through regression therapy and found out that all of them had been abducted by an alien craft. Now, it sounds crazy, but if anybody has read anything about alien abductions, and William Shatner is supposedly writing a book about it, because he did some research and that might be one of his next projects. But anybody that's ever read about it, it's like people have the same experiences. Now, maybe not the same things are done to them, because with these gentlemen, they did have tests done to them. And everybody jokes, oh, alien probes, blah, blah, blah. But unless it's a mass-induced type of delusion, where are they getting this idea? Especially in the 50s. Now, people would say, oh, yeah, well, Little Green Men happened in the 40s, and it was a movie. No, I don't know. I'm not saying that every encounter is real. I'm not saying that there are people that don't make things up for attention, because after all, there are people that are very thirsty. We all know this. But in the case of this event, years later, one of the 4 gentlemen came out and said it was a hoax. We did it for money. But the other 3 were adamant that no, that's not what happened. And I have to agree with them, because what kind of financial gain would you get? Yeah, you'd get 15 minutes of fame, but in all reality, back then and even now, there's a stigma attached with if you come out and say, I've seen something I can't explain. You're automatically branded crazy. People think, talk behind your back, and especially if you're from a small town, that's horrible. So what did they actually gain from it? They're not multimillionaires. So what's the point? That I don't understand. But Maine, if you're planning a vacation, if you're an amateur ufologist, maybe check out the state. Maybe go camping, see what you can see. I mean, whenever you can visualize the stars or see the stars in the night sky without air pollution, you never know what might be lurking. Our next trip on this journey here leads us to Alaska. Now, one of my favorite movies is the Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, or Encounters of the Fourth Kind. I really like, actually, the Fourth Kind. Sorry about that. So, the Fourth Kind, and it deals with abductions. And it was a brilliant marketing strategy, because it was not real, and it was like a found footage film in some parts. It was a documentary, a mockumentary, but the way they marketed it was sheer genius. They had you think that this psychiatrist was an actual person, and she did exist, and it's brilliant. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to give it away, but it's got a great cast. It's got Mila Jovovich. It's got Will Patton, very well acted and well scripted. I enjoyed it, so check it out. But in Alaska, what occurred was once again in a remote area, but this time it was Japan Airlines Flight 1628, and this happened in 1986. So this was a cargo plane, a Boeing 747, and they were just transporting wine. That's what they were doing. It was just regular standard operational procedure. However, what they didn't count on was being pursued by 2 UAPs. They had no idea what they were, but they were being tailed. Then they came upon the mothership. And that's when all the alarm bells went off. They're like, uh-oh, we have to know what this is. It's in our airspace. So they radioed air traffic control. Air traffic control immediately asked another airplane that was in the vicinity, maybe just to see what they were what was going on, and that was a United Airlines flight. And a military jet happened to be in the area. But when those 2 crafts showed up, no UFOs. So once they landed, the captain of this flight came out and said, I saw an anomaly. I saw something that I couldn't explain. What happened to him? Well, he was put on a desk job for several years. Not unlike what would happen today. And that's probably why pilots, and we know this, that's why they don't speak out when they see something that's unexplainable in the skies. Now, with the disclosure that's coming about with Gimbal and Tic Tac and Go Fast, and all those Navy flights that witnessed unidentified aircraft, and we're now seeing these films, and they're not fixed, and you can't, hoax them. maybe now Congress is taking an interest in this, and from what I've seen and heard and read from Tom DeLonge and Luis Elizondo, this is the case. There's closed doors meetings happening. Now, back in 1986, that wasn't going on, and anybody that saw something that wasn't a star, that wasn't a weather balloon, you're crazy, and there was a stigma attached like I had mentioned before. Luckily, he did get behind the cockpit once more, but still, he had a couple of years where he couldn't do the thing that he loved, all because he did the right thing by reporting something that's in our skies. And we should be concerned. Even back then, Ronald Reagan wanted to do Star Wars. He wanted to implement this plan. And we need to be concerned, because if there's something out there that we don't know about that is rival military, aircraft, you never know. Which brings us to our other remote site, and Alaska would be a great vacation too. You've got Mount Denali, you've got national parks, it's pristine, it's beautiful, lots of lakes. Yeah, maybe take a vacation there. So next up, we're going to talk about North Concord Air Force Base at East Mountain in Vermont. Now, this place opened in 1956, and it was a radar base. And back then its function, along with some other bases, was to warn our military of an attack by the Russians. Remember, this was the Cold War. So, of course, for this type of endeavor, you're going to set up in a remote area like East Mountain was. Now, what's interesting and what happened there kind of mirrors an incident that happened in Montana at an Air Force base, where an unidentified flying object hovers over the base. Now, in the case of Montana, it was a nuclear silo. Something really scary happened because missiles were starting to launch. The sequence was started and then abruptly stopped. They still don't know, was it something electrical, was it something that malfunctioned, but there was an unidentified flying object in the vicinity. In this case, at this base, for 18 minutes, a UFO hovered over it. Inexplicable, but it was reported. Coincidentally enough, this happened in 1961. 2 years later, that base was shut down. And if you go to East Mountain today, you can see the abandoned base. It's kind of interesting, because it was set up, like a little community, like bases usually are. So I bet it would be kind of eerie to explore that. But what makes this interesting is not too long after that reported UFO sighting, we had one of the most famous UFO abductions in history, Betty and Barney Hill. Now, some conjecture that the UFO that was seen at North Concord Air Force Base was actually the one that took Barney and Betty. That's something to think about. Something to ponder if you happen to be out in the beautiful Vermont wilderness at night. Maybe look up. Alright, moving on. Our next stop is Montana. This is a different incident. This is known as the Mariana UFO incident, and it happened in 1950. Now, 1950 was when everything was kick-starting with the UFO phenomenon. We had reports of saucers over D.C., which they kind of referenced in Project Blue Book, and we actually saw it if you followed the History Channel series. So, what happened here was a normal day for a guy named Nick Mariana. He happened to be an owner of a minor league team, and he and his assistant were going out to check the fields as you would before a game. But what he didn't count on was seeing some silvery objects in the sky. Now, to his naked eye, and he wasn't trained, he thought that they might have been 50 feet across. So he wanted to capture this, and being an amateur movie maker, he grabbed a 16mm out of his car, started shooting footage for about 16 seconds. The local newspaper gets wind of it, the Great Falls Tribune. They run a story, and back then, remember newspapers, this hit the wires all over the country. So this became national news. Cue Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, who decides that they want to look into this. And this was Project Grudge. And if anybody knows anything about Project Grudge, it was the precursor to J. Allen Hynek's Project Blue Book. So there you have it. So, this is what happened. They get the footage. They test it. They look at it. They do everything. They return it to Nick Mariana, who discovers that several frames are missing. When he asks the Air Force, they tell him, oh, no, we just took care of one frame and it was damaged. We're sorry. He's like, no, there's more frames missing. There was never an explanation for it. But the official report was that Mr. Mariana just took pictures of reflections off of 2 F-94 jet fighters. I'm glad it wasn't a weather balloon. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that could not have happened. It very well might have been. It could have happened because there are Air Force bases in Montana. But it's just interesting, if that's all it was, why didn't they return the footage to him intact? Why did they get rid of several frames? I don't know. Maybe Project Blue Book, the TV series, might want to look into that. So, last up on our UFO trip is a very famous incident. Washington, the state of Washington. Now, once again, a remote area. There's some pretty remote areas, but Washington's pretty populated. But this happened to Kenneth Arnold in 1947, right before Roswell, as he was piloting his plane over Mount Rainier. Now, those of you that are into ufology know that Kenneth Arnold is the father of the phrase flying saucer. He's the one that originated it. When he described the 9 aircraft that he saw flying in a V formation like geese, he used the term like saucers skipping across water. That's how we got flying saucers. But what's interesting about this is that, at first he's like, okay, I was in the military. It's after World War II. Could be some tests. They could be doing some runs. Not the case. So another person near Mount Adams saw these 9 objects, as did a commercial airliner in Idaho. This particular case is kind of what kick-started everything, and kind of started the whole UFO craze that was going on in the late 50s and still going on today. And Kenneth Arnold, he was everywhere. He was always talking about this incident. And it is curious that it happened right before Roswell and right before Corona. So, coincidence? Maybe not. Well, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And I don't know if you did anything for World UFO Day, but always remember, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Yeah, I stole Casey Kasem's signature top 40 phrase. I did it. I'm guilty. I'll see you guys next week on Nerdsday. Thanks for spending time with me. Remember, the truth is out there.
Please remember to like, subscribe and comment, as we love to hear back from our viewers. Also, if you enjoy our videos, please consider becoming a patron of our show through Patreon and/or GoFundMe. Links are listed below the video in the description.